Today I'm on Venus in Gemini, and what I'm going to do is run through a slideshow. You've got, prior to this, you've got Venus in Aries and Venus in Taurus, and this is doing it through understanding evolutionary astrology and what Venus means in the houses. So each week I'm doing a video, and I'm going to start with Venus in the third house in Gemini. So let's see here. Next slide. So what we have is, I'm just going to make this smaller. Okay, so Venus has an inner and outer nature and is the way in which we hear our own voice. Okay, so this is important, and the way we listen as well. And as we hear ourselves, our inner talk, we can see how we project into the world, and then we see what is reflected back to us. So I think a lot of us can agree with that, you know, not exact, but often what we're feeling inside, we project outwardly, and also with our thoughts. And then within that, we receive back. This is as adults, I would say, more than as children. Really important to bring that up. And then we've got inner needs and values, and that's what Venus is about. It's about our inner needs and our values. And Mercury rules Gemini and the third house. So next slide. We've got how do I talk to myself question, because the way in which we talk to ourselves is going to be very important. And each sign, you know, wherever your Venus is, like for instance, I have Venus in Aries, and the way I talk to myself and the way I go about getting my needs met will be different to somebody with Venus in Scorpio or Venus in Gemini, like I'm reading now. So a good question to ask yourself to begin to make your life easier. It's like, start listening to how you talk to yourself. And also, as you go through these slides, you're going to have, you're going to be able to remedy the bit that's not working for you, and the more you understand astrology in your chart. So here you have now this is my birth chart. I hope you can see my pointer. And what we have is that this is a chart dated the 14th of July 2019. And you can see, if you look on your chart, if you know astrology, you're going to know already. But if you don't, that Venus is here, and with my pointer, it's in my fifth house, and it's in Aries. And for me, it shows how I interact with people and the way I talk to myself. So being in Aries, my Venus, my values and my needs a specific way. And also, we can also look at the Venus transit when we're going through, each month, or because Venus takes about 225 days to go around the chart. So for instance, Venus is currently in Leo in my 8th house. It's just moved into Leo overnight, actually. So for all of us, Venus is now going to be in Leo transit, and that basically will, then move on into Virgo. So it takes about 225 days, I believe, to move around the chart. Next, how do I talk to myself? We've done that one, so move on. So what we have here, I love this picture with the planets, and basically the natal chart represents our potential. So it's worth knowing that a natal chart represents our potential, and it also represents what we have been and where we are at and what we can become. We have free will, and knowing this means we get to make choices. So we have to be aware that whilst we've been, pumped up with conditioning and from family and life in general and the structure of the way life is and authority, we do get to condition ourselves as adults. And that's another good thing about knowing your astrology chart, that you're going to be able to evolve at a quicker pace than if you don't know. It's like for me, when I started learning astrology, it's like those horses that have the blinkers on. It's like the blinkers were removed. It was like, wow, okay. And it's helped me to get my life together, understanding my astrology, and to decondition a lot of stuff as well. So it is important we look at the totality of the chart. And in evolutionary astrology, the baseline used will be Pluto and the North Node and the South Node. So if clearly you would need to look at your chart and know that. Where your nodes are as well, the North Node and the South Node of the Moon. So here goes. We've got Venus in Gemini, and the ruler of Gemini is Mercury. Here we have a pattern of inner relatedness, and all that is to do with with self-knowledge, inner restlessness running with an inner constant dialogue, a constant stream of inner questions, including who am I? This is not only inner, this is also projected outwardly. Venus in Gemini learn through reactions. Their thoughts and then the possibilities lead to actions, and these lead to experiences. And the actions and experiences lead to knowledge and then self-awareness. It's a non-stop process. Gemini is mutable and therefore air, which is unrestricted and leads to expansion and growth. There are times when information overload leads to a pulling back and going inward, and this is needed in order to process all information to see where it fits into self and the world. They are also looking to what something might mean and what they will discover, a curiosity which leads them to experience. There will be questions in the digesting, the looking to see if something is truth and how it applies and does this work and how. Withdrawing helps to assimilate the meaning, and withdrawal can be due to exhaustion and overwhelm. They are open and friendly, and they are accepting of the diversity of life and all in it. They are good at asking questions and cause expansion, and they bring awareness to things, what works and why and what does not. When they withdraw, they can be reactive to others and not allow others to express themselves fully. When this happens, they are not heard either. They learn to understand others through the mind and intellect. So interestingly enough, I am a Gemini sun and Gemini moon. So that's part of my operation, but in a different way. That's my sun and my moon. But Venus, we're talking about Venus here. The next slide, going on the Gemini in Venus. So due to overthinking, there can be a lack of direction, and this can be solved through looking at their intention, the why they want to know something or study something. So I'll give you an example. It's like I was doing astrology and just taking the information and talking about it all the time. But what is my intention? So I had to ask myself, what is my intention with astrology? And for me, the intention is to help people heal and help people to know themselves. But firstly, I started with myself, and then I started looking at other people's charts and helping other people. So then we have the knowing why can give guidance. Knowing one's intention can help guide them from being a misguided missile. The why something needs to be understood. The intent behind the question. Here, Venus in Gemini needs to get to a place of not needing to seek outside for the answers and to come to an inner knowing, to take their consciousness from left brain to right brain, to learn to come from a place of being in response to events rather than in reaction to events. A choosing to respond rather than to react brings us to peace and satisfaction. And in doing this, they will hear others and self more deeply rather than superficially. And this in turn changes the questions they ask, which become more meaningful. This leads away from being fragmented and all over the place. And this allows them for more time to focus on what they need and what they want, and to complete things that they wish to complete. So I've noticed as I've gone through life and I've evolved my chart, that my Gemini sun and moon has been evolving. So now I tend to ask more questions than I used to, and I'm a better listener, and I'm not as, I think when I was younger I was quite superficial, and there's still a bit of that in me, but it depends who I'm speaking to and about what, but I do like to not, I like to go deep in my thinking and questioning. So then we can balance this with the polarity of Sagittarius and learn to hear deeply, and to see the knowledge is within self, and to continue expansion through conscious intention, and to develop open-mindedness. So there you go. Next slide. So this is Uganda, and this is a saying that I love, because I think it's important for all of us, but clearly we've all got different subjective experience on this one. It's mankind is engaged in an internal quest for that something else he hopes will bring him happiness, complete and unending. For those individual souls who have sought and found God, the search is over. He is that something else. So God is really something subjective. It's not something we can really fight about, but people tend to on planet Earth. But it's a beautiful subjective experience. I do believe as souls we're trying to go back to source and basically get rid of all of the things that take us away from source energy, or whatever you want to call it. But I understand that deeply. If you want more information on that, then I do have sessions that I do with people, and all of my information is below the page or below this video. So what I'm going to read to you now is a bit of Carl Jung. He says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So this means that until we really start looking at our early wounding, or the problems we have, or our habits that no longer are working for us, basically things will happen and we'll just put it down to fate. Some people will say, oh, well, that was meant to happen, or give a reason why things happen. But to me, I can see that the unconscious side of us and the conditioning that we've had to contend with really, that's what we experience as adults. We're experiencing what we've been taught and what we've been taught to believe about ourselves. So it's very important that we do dig on our own stuff to learn to heal, or be able to heal. And also that will come through knowing your chart as well. Also, he said, what you resist not only persists, but it will grow in size. So again, the deeper we look at ourselves and understand ourselves, the more, I wouldn't say control is the wrong word, but the more we see, with a big S, of self with a big S as well, that we basically, life can become something completely different to what it may be if we just don't dig and look at our stuff. And resistance determines the magnitude of our problems or confrontations, and you might relate to that too. So lastly, I've got Jeff Wolf Green. The source material here is Jeff Wolf Green. I highly recommend you get the book Pluto 1 and look at Pluto in your astrology chart. Mine is in the 9th house, my Pluto, and it's currently transiting my 2nd house. And that's our soul. It's our soul journey, Pluto, and then the nodes. But the evolutionary journey of the soul. And the quotes here, Carl Jung, and a couple of quotes there, and Uganda, and then the pictures are from Google. So that's it. I'm going to leave it there for today. And next week I'll be back with the sign of Cancer. Okay, that's it. End of slide. But do definitely check out some of the links I've got below. And you can get your own chart on astro.com, and like the chart I showed you on this slideshow. So you can find out where your planets are, but you do need your time of birth to get the correct information. So be aware of that. Thank you for watching. Catch you later.